Today we're going to be looking at something called a conditional. A conditional is something, and I'm going to actually type it in the comments here. A conditional, the definition is that it's a block used to make a choice between chunks of code. This is a way to say, if this thing happens, I want you to do this. And if this other thing happens, I want you to do that. And in order to be able to do that, we have to actually introduce this other new type of block that we haven't talked about. And that is called a predicate block. A predicate block has these arrows on the edge. So this is an example of a predicate block. Mouse down here is an example of a predicate block. We have a lot of predicate blocks that are found in the operators down here. We have lots of these little angle bracket blocks, and that's what we're going to be looking at. I also want to introduce this idea of this ask and wait block and the answer response here. So I can ask, how old are you? And then say, wait. And what that's going to do is it's going to give a prompt on the screen. And if I click on this, you'll see it. It'll say, how old are you? And then it'll give a space at the bottom here for the user to enter their answer. And then we can use that to determine where we go from there. So I'm actually going to set this up so that it starts when the green arrow is clicked. And I'm going to click off so that we are not still waiting. So it's going to ask, how old are you? And wait. And then it's going to get the answer, and it's going to put it into this variable answer. This circle here is going to be equal to whatever they typed in. And then I want to respond with something like, oh, you're old enough to drive if they're older than 16. So if answer is bigger than or equal to 16, I want to do something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look in here. If I scroll down, I have this if block. And you'll see that there's a spot for an angle bracket to go in this if block. And I want, if their answer is greater than, and I can drag this answer and put it into one of those boxes, if their answer is greater than 15. You'll notice that there isn't a greater than or equal to block over here. So you're going to need to pay attention to that. If their answer is greater than or equal to 16, I want to say, so I go to looks and I click say, you're old enough to drive. And it'll say that for 2 seconds. So when I run this, it asks, how old are you? And I answer, I am 17. Go. And it says you're old enough to drive because answer 17 was bigger than 15. So it says this. Now, what I also want you to see is if I type in 6, it's not doing what's inside this if. So the way this works, this will only make it do what's inside this C block here if this thing is true in the angle brackets, if this comes out as true. Everything you put into your if is going to have a true or false answer. If it's true, it'll do the thing inside. If it's not, it won't. I also want to show you a different type of if-else if statement block, and that's this one that has this, it kind of looks like a E. This block, if I move my answer and I say you're old enough to drive in here and get rid of this, if this top part is true, it's going to do what's inside the top part. If the top part is not true, it will do what's in the bottom part here. So I can add a say, you are too young to drive. So now when I run this code and it says, how old are you? If I type 6, it will do, you are too young to drive. The thing I want to point out here is that with this if and else, it will only do one of these two things. You can't end up doing both. If this is true, say I type in I'm 17, it will tell me you're old enough to drive, and then it skips the else. And that's how these conditionals work.